Good day, everyone. My name is Rich Jacob from Western New York Coaches, and we're here today to talk with you about Western New York Coaches and provide one of our first of a series of coaching training videos. And this one is an overview of sports psychology. I'd like to introduce our team, our executive team of WNY Coaches. Again, my name is Rich Jacob, a longtime basketball coach and professor of sports psychology at Medaille College here in Buffalo, New York. Say hello to our managing director, Blair Lipsitz, who is a longtime elite athlete, professional volleyball player, and Division I coach. Joined also by our director of sports psychology and wellness, Kelly Piper, certified mental performance consultant, and at the University of Buffalo, an assistant director of athletics for student athlete wellness. And lastly, our director of performance, Coach Bob Bateson, longtime healer, longtime strength and conditioning coach, former NFL player, along with another resume of professional football organizations. So welcome, everybody. And you will hear from all of us today and in the future. Again, we feel like Western New York Coaches can fill a void here and become a premier coaching education program. So many topics as like the one today in sports psych are necessary for coaches at all levels. So our training will be geared oftentimes to a population, but overall, it's coaching development as a profession. Our mission, as you see on the screen, rooted in experience, research, passion, and creativity. The mission of WNY Coaches is to foster excellence in performance and well-being of coaches, athletes, and teams through sports psychology, holistic education, mentorship, and professional development. 25-cent question. We'll send you a quarter if you can get the answer here. Where is baseball mentioned in the Bible? In the beginning. Okay, and we do pay 25 extra cents for good jokes, better ones than that. The APA looks at sports psychology as a proficiency that uses psychological knowledge and skills to address optimal performance and well-being of athletes. I think, and it says more there, and we appreciate the American Psychological Association. Of course, they are our leader in psychology, but this idea of the well-being of athletes is first and foremost on our list. It is priority one in all that we do at WNY Coaches. And of course, it's of the utmost importance for every coach. And at the foundation of everything we all do, ethical behavior is critical and, of course, very important. The great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the time is always right to do what is right. And again, coaches, we want you to know that these topics that we cover today, although brief today, will be covered in depth in our series of trainings and micro lectures in the near future. A salute to Coleman Griffith, the grandfather of sports psychology. He developed the first known sports psychology laboratory at the University of Illinois in 1925. And a year later, authored the seminal work, The Psychology of Coaching. Speaking of the University of Buffalo, where Kelly is, I had the great pleasure of receiving a copy of this text from one of my mentors, Dr. Sal Esposito. And I can say that so many of the principles covered in this 1926 text stand strong today. So thank you, Coleman Griffith, and the many people who contribute to the sports psychology field, such as Bruce Ogilvie and Thomas Tutko in the mid-1960s wrote this text, Problem Athletes and How to Handle Them. Again, another foray early in the field of sports psychology. And they also contributed the athletic motivation inventory, which, as you see on the screen, was a self-report inventory used to assess 11 personality traits. And again, you'll see those on the screen. And this is in the 1960s. So again, listen, we talked about Coleman Griffith in 1925. Let's remember that the first Olympics were 776 BC. So it's been a long time that people have been trying to identify a competitive edge and what can be the differentiator in competition. So we know everything is not new in chasing the victory, but certainly the discipline of sports psychology continues to grow and the future is bright. And we need these kinds of trainings. And we thank, again, the people who have led us to this research that we do today. Also, talking about the text, Psychology of Coaching, and then the Tutko and Ogilvy text, we will have a library, a continuous library of resources necessary for coaches on our website and in our programming as we move forward. You will always see current research articles, and then again, a library of text available for access for you and or a direction on how to obtain them. Again, say hello to Coach Blair Brown Lipsitz, our managing director. And Coach, I know you won't say it. I'm going to say that's a great photo of you holding the national championship trophy at Penn State. And I didn't tell the folks yet about the years, but maybe you can share a little bit of your 4-time Penn State championship and as you were Big Ten Player of the Year. So I know on Coach's research agenda, team cohesion is at the top of the list, and she's going to share a little bit right now.
Yes, I think that is our 4th. So the final one for me, that's my senior year in that picture. And that's a look of relief, I think, at that point. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense that team cohesion would be such a big part of my studies and now, you know, what I'm helping with teaching. But team cohesion to me became one of the most important parts of coaching when I started coaching, started my coaching career. And I think it kind of ties back to that previous slide on motivation, what really motivates your athletes. And, you know, being a part of a team should be a really big part of that. And so when I think about team cohesion, I think about you think about optimal performance and the well-being of your athletes. And so much of that begins with a really positive culture in your gym and how to create that. And I think team cohesion is sort of a natural place to start for a lot of coaches. So if you're looking for somewhere to begin, how do we get our team to work well together, but also how do we get our coaches to work well together and our coaches to work well with our team? To me, that's kind of what team cohesion means. Some people call it buy-in, again, positive team culture, but that cohesiveness is what's going to create that great team chemistry that you have out on the court, out on the field, wherever you're competing. So
that's great. Thank you, Coach. And also on the screen here, we have the group dynamics in sport, the guru, as we like to call him, Dr. Albert Karen, God rest him, who has been forever a leader in group dynamics and team cohesion. And you see the, again, thousands of citations and reads. And in part of also what he developed is the group conflict questionnaire, the group environment questionnaire, which is continues to be used greatly in this kind of research. Just to follow up on cohesion, you know, the psychology of Gestalt psychology, and also Gestalt is a therapeutic measure in counseling, but this quest for Gestalt aligns itself with team cohesion. And it is in essence where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? Where 2 + 2 equals more than 4. So I don't think we have to ask coaches if they would like to learn more about the strength of team and how to develop the strength of unity, synergy, togetherness, and what that means in the quest for victory. So we'll talk again more in depth about cohesion and Gestalt as we continue. Again, say hello to Kelly Piper, our Director of Sports Psychology and Well-Being. Thanks for being here, Kelly.
Morning. Good to see everyone. I'm just going to talk a little bit about kind of an umbrella approach to wellness in sports psychology and wellness for student athletes and coaches. So briefly, my background is I've been at the University of Buffalo for over 20 years now in various roles, but most specifically walking alongside our student athletes and coaches to holistically develop their well-being on and off the field of play. And then in private practice in the Western New York community, really helping families, parents, youth coaches, and student athletes from probably age 10 or 11 all the way up through the lifespan on similar topics. So when I think about wellness and sport, it's so broad to think about, but we want to focus on human beings first, right? So the famous quote that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, I think carries a lot of weight for us as coaches and for athletics professionals. As student athletes at all levels are, looking to grow and develop, but oftentimes they don't know what they don't know as far as how to balance everything that they've set out to achieve. So as coaches and administrators, most of us are highly perfectionistic, very driven, high achieving, high performing people. So being able to model the behavior and the coping strategies and the balanced lifestyle as best as we can to be able to help athletes do that as well, I think is a great first step. Some of the topics that really fall under wellness and healthy behaviors can include, sleep hygiene, again, balanced lifestyle, nutrition. And, I think right now when we think about nutrition and social media and diet culture and a lot of the messaging that student athletes are bombarded with, it's not only, thinking about what to eat every day, but how to have a healthy relationship with food across the lifespan and how that really can impact quality of life. Relationships with our coaches, conflict management, stress management, effective coping, all of those things really fall under the topic of wellness. And then as we move through that, really the goal is for athletes to develop a self-awareness around those patterns, right? So when, we're helping to guide them, help them find their baseline on the things that they're doing well and their growth curves. And then from there, that's really kind of the foundation of the pyramid. And when they can gain some clarity and, some centeredness on those things as a human, it really opens the door for us to be able to add some of those mental performance pieces, right? They're able to, hopefully with more clarity, be able to say, okay, now I can focus on mental rehearsal and some keys to focusing when I'm on the court and, relaxation or intensity control strategies when I'm in a competition situation. So all those things kind of fall under wellness as well. One thing to mention before you move on as well is specifically the topic of clinical mental health. And we know working in the field of sport that it is clearly the number one concern that student athletes bring forward is topics around clinical mental health. So just helping our coaches to be able to understand that you don't have to be trained as a counselor. We want you to be able to have the tools to sort of read and respond to what your student athletes may be presenting with, and to, again, allow them to trust you that you have their best interest in mind, and then have a game plan on how to best support them when they're dealing with a clinical concern.
That's excellent overview, Kelly. And this, building trust, yes, with that student athlete, and certainly I know one of your challenges, we've discussed it in detail, is to build trust with the coaches, because it is a little bit of a shift in focus. So there's much more to be learned and talked about, and thank you very much for that. Building on this idea of mindset, again, another topic, subtopic in our overview here. Dr. Carol Dweck, we feel, does it, and so many people feel has done it the best in identifying a couple different types of mindset: growth mindset versus fixed mindset. I know that Coach Blair, in her work at the University of Buffalo, in the core of the approach was having everybody thinking on the growth mindset. And I know that they were successful for this example. And, again, much more to be learned, and a micro lecture is coming. Also, this idea of self-regulation, Kelly talked about self-awareness and, getting a baseline. I think this aligns with some of that discussion with awareness of the self of the athlete themselves and where they are in certain parts and certain points of their competition. A few components here: concentration, focus, balance, and emotion. Emotional self-regulation is where we want to find a balance, and to get, I would say, to the next step, or to level up, as we've said, in your competition and in your performance. So so much to talk about in self-regulation, and part of it is breathing, right? The importance of proper breathing. I know you'll hear from Coach Bateson here in a short while, but in our work together in coaching, he had a breathing program, if you will, that engaged our team, and they embraced it, and certainly it helped finding that quiet mind, loose body, and level emotion while performing. So again, we'll talk, there's so much to talk about when we start to identify the team and approaching the team and some of these concepts. But we have to remember that on that team, depending on the sport, of course, but a basketball example, there's 15 personalities, there's 15 individuals, that each have to be attended to as an individual, all the while, fostering the team approach and the team culture. Again, talking more about the paradigm shift of the traditional coach. Most of us played and loved the game growing up, and want, the next best thing to playing, many of us feel, is coaching. So we moved into the coaching ranks and gave it our best shot. Perhaps some of us studied physical education. I think that if we look at the profile of many coaches, different educational tracks, you'll see a variety of educational tracks that coaches have taken. But enter sports psychology, again, perhaps 40, 50 years now, but more in the past 25 years. So much more involvement is the sports psychology consultant in the athletic departments. I always use Stanford University as an example, that has 17 or more full-time sports psychology consultants in their athletic department. So now, again, traditionally speaking, you have the coach and the assistant coaches, trainer as part of the staff. And now we have sports psychologists assigned specifically to a team. Some colleges, if they don't have one sports psychologist per team, then they'll assign a couple sports to one sports psychologist. But again, going back to Kelly's comment about, building trust with the athletes and building trust with the coaches. This again is a new relationship, if you will, the sports psychologist and the coach. And again, the resources that will be available to you as coaches in our area and across the world, Western New York Coaches aims to provide those kinds of resources at your fingertips. Mental toughness. I mean, I know I'm going to introduce Coach Bateson again here shortly to talk about injury, but he's also a great teacher and a communicator related to this topic of mental toughness. I mean, again, so many quotes, so many people. Mental toughness is to physical as 4 is to 1. Bobby Knight makes it clear that there's a great difference between physical toughness and mental toughness. And I know even Kelly used the term mental rehearsal before, and this is part of what we're talking about, kind of playing through the challenges, whatever they may be as an individual, whatever they may be during a competition. And the great Bill Russell, concentration and mental toughness are the margins of victory. I thought that was a really great quote and gives us a lot to think about. So we're all proponents of teaching and developing mental toughness. There are questions in the literature. Is it something that is born in us, or is it something that can be learned? Again, more that we will discuss in detail. The same goes for imagery and visualization. I always say, this is science that works, coaches. It is free. And it's amazing to me that we have so many people either not aware of it or not implementing it in their coaching, in their practice. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we have a focus in our mind, if we can practice in our minds with imagery and visualization, and it will enhance performance. It will help us get closer to victory. And again, brief terms here: breathe, dream, and practice. Of course, repetition is the mother of learning. So the more we utilize it and practice it, the more we have a chance for it to be effective. Okay, moving on to peak performance. Always, it's ironic, right? We have this great mountaintop reaching the peak, and then we ask ourselves, is there really a top? Is there really a peak to improving performance? And the truth is, there's not. So it's a little bit, again, ironic that we use this term. It is a term that's understood, but I think we have to dig deeper, as Coach Bateson would say, on this idea of, do you ever really reach the peak? I want to talk more about that. And Csikszentmihalyi's concept of flow for optimal performance is a great part of our literature in finding an immersion in the now and reaching this power of now, as Eckhart Tolle talks about through his concept of flow. So again, the resource, the great read will be on our website, in our library. This is certainly one of the texts that we encourage people to have, and as we like to say, for good books, it's a keeper. Talking about the peak, the top of the mountain, this Japanese term Kaizen, which, as you see in the characters there, mean change for the good. Kaizen concept is continuous improvement. We can always get a little better, right? And again, as simple as it may seem, to encourage it to be part of your culture, to have people wrap their arms around the idea that it is a process to improve. And if we're improving a little bit, we always talk about one day at a time or one possession at a time in sports. And that's the idea. If you start practice at 12 and end it at 2, you certainly want to be a little better at 2 o'clock than you were at 12. That's the idea of Kaizen. And again, it will be its own micro lecture. I turn it over to Coach Bateson again, who has worked with people at all levels, all the way up to the professional ranks in injury and rehab. And Coach, I know you're pleased, and thank you for sharing a brief overview on this topic.
Absolutely. Coming from the field of strength and conditioning, there's sometimes a gap in that between the rehab component and the strength and conditioning component. They really integrate. And as coaches, not every coach is going to understand that, because there are certain lanes. This is where Coach and I have done a great job of understanding our roles, coaching together, and we each bring something different to the table. And the whole idea is, like from the very beginning, the competitive edge. So now we know that, strength and conditioning is a competitive edge. It's becoming a part of every coaching staff. The next competitive edge is getting your athlete back on the field or the court as fast as possible after an injury. As part of the rehab that I'd like to bring into the picture, having the background in strength and conditioning, is there's a psychological component to rehab, as there is in any part of sports or strength and conditioning. And you have to teach or work with that athlete or person in bringing back that injury and the psychological level as well as the physical level. And that is not really taught yet to this level, and it is missed a lot of times. Anybody can go through the physical motions of rehabbing after an injury, but are they digging deep that next level and taking ownership of that body part that's injured and bringing it back into being part of the integrated part of you again? And I've seen a lot of times where an athlete gets back, they get cleared because they're functional, but they really haven't psychologically brought that injury back as part of them. And if there's a little bit of a hesitation at any point in time, you're going to get injured again. And that's usually what happens. So you can do your physical rehab, but you need to bring in the psychological component of that rehab as well and integrate them. That we talked about, Blair, you talked about the cohesion. And that's what strength and conditioning does also, is brings your athletes together on and off the court. The stuff you do off the court is as important as the stuff you do on the court or the field, right? And if you got an injury, the athlete is injured, sometimes they feel like they're not part of it anymore for a while. So it's important to make sure that we keep that athlete integrated with the team, what's going on as well. So that when they come back, they're not feeling like they have to reintegrate, re-enter.
That's great.
Keep on going, coaches. We could dive for a mile on this one, but that's just an overview of how to approach it.
Right, and I think it's so important. And as you were talking, Coach Bates, and I defer to Kelly. Kelly, part of your work, I have to believe, involves those people coming back from injury. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, I think, it's really one of the most challenging experiences, I think, for student athletes as they kind of move through their experiences. Your body's your temple, right? So when the rug kind of gets pulled out from underneath you, it feels very out of control, and really can spiral into a really negative experience. So whether it's an acute injury that's totally unexpected, or a student athlete is dealing with chronic injury that leads to kind of chronic pain and discomfort that is associated with their participation in their sport. But it's really a grieving process, that many student athletes experience, and coming back through, the stages of loss on a variety of levels. So, I think one of the biggest things, as Bob just talked about, is the shift in social support that happens when a student athlete is injured, right? They're isolated from their team. Or even if they are integrated, quote, into practice, they're not participating at the same level. You know, things like being in the training room when the team's at dinner, right? Or not traveling when the team's traveling, or not being at practice when the team's practicing, in addition to their journey to just try and get their body where it needs to be and to get back and managing their pain. Can be really difficult, and it's scary not knowing what the future looks like. Will I ever be the same athlete again? How are my coaches and teammates perceiving me? Do they trust that I'm going to be able to return? You know, trusting your trainers and your support staff. So it's all of those things. You know, I think from a strategy perspective, that mental rehearsal and imagery is really key to giving an athlete an edge, to being able to have some control and some strategies, some tools to be able to effectively return. So talking to someone like, you know, the panel that's here today, that is really checked into their well-being as a human, right? And doesn't have a dog in the fight other than helping them move forward, can be really effective for them, to offer them some strategies to say, hey, while you're on the sidelines watching practice, let's work on effectively doing some mental rehearsal. So you're checked in up here to exactly what your team is physically doing, right? Helping them journal it out, maybe go into some counseling to, you know, process what they're experiencing. And I think most importantly, just staying connected, making them feel like they're still a part.
That's good and so important. I think, and thank you, Kelly. This is another point to make. The essence of Western New York coaches and why we have formed this group is this kind of resource. You know, so many coaches may not know where to turn or where to go for information or to who to speak with. And certainly Western New York coaches, we along, you know, again, with the people on this call, our executive group, we have a long list of master coaches that we'll be sharing out that who have always given back, if you will, share their expertise, and again, they will be accessible, you know, through our various domains, in particular our website and contact information. So, thank you both for that important overview. Again, more of the vocabulary involved in sports psychology. You know, have another text here, and gentleman Martin Seligman, who is a leader in positive psychology. Again, today, just identifying some of these terms, but the building of a culture on your team. If you're using positive psychology as one of your tools, you will reach greater heights, if you will. You know, yes, it's just another opinion, I guess, coming from this overview, but not enough can be said today or tomorrow on the strength of using positive psychology, reminding your athletes what it is you want from them, as opposed to a negative, you didn't do that, right? That's just a quick example of what positive psychology means. But if it's fully embraced by the unit, then the strength, again, of team, of earning what we call team, is just greater. We've talked about motivation. There is a way that coaches can build confidence. We look forward to sharing that micro lecture with you. Again, some other topics like self-talk and anchoring in performance techniques that are taught by, again, any and all, right? From the coach to the sports psychologist to the athletic administrator. And we're talking to parents as coaches, right? We know that there are hundreds and thousands of parents that give their time and have a great interest in coaching. And this resource is going to help you help the young people. You know, Kelly alluded to building relationships. Here we have, you know, player to player relationship and coach player relationship. Again, we look forward to having conversations and related lectures on these topics. And it's ongoing, right? This is fluid. the idea of building strength in the relationship. And we mentioned a little bit before, being immersed in the now, blocking all distractions in our performance, being in that same possession. A quick example of being immersed is when you make a mistake, player on the court or the field, then you have to erase that mistake to be in that next moment. We'll talk a lot about the immersion, being immersed in the now. And how is your locker room? Building culture. Daniel Coyle has a great text, culture code, that again will be on our website as part of our library list. But we look at the locker room as a sacred place for the players. So, and in our opinion, and the thought here is that the players own that locker room, and a lot of what happens in the locker room is translated on the field of play. So it's important to foster a positive locker room, but it's a good measure, if you will, of how we are doing in our quest for victory, in our statistics, in our record. So again, can't say enough about making that place, the locker room, and giving the ownership to that locker room to the players, and look forward to talking a lot more about that. Coaches, we're coming near the close here, and we just want to identify some of these organizations that have developed in sports psychology, starting with the American Psychological Association, Division 47. The International Society of Sports Psychology, as we know it today, the World Congress of Sports Psychology was started there by Ferruccio Antonelli of Italy. He called together as many people as he knew around the world to host this first Society of Sports Psychology, which started this great organization again that offers a World Congress. I believe it's every 2 years, which is amazing. A group of professionals now that, and they're, again, to reiterate, in today's world, there is so much awesome work being done in sports psychology. We encourage you to dig in, and we can guide you accordingly. In 1985, the Association for the Advancement of Applied Sports Psychology, now known as the Association of Applied Sports Psychology, was born. It's the largest international governing body that has the highest regarded credential, Certified Mental Performance Consultant, CMPC, and as been stated, or at least mentioned on the slide here, our own Kelly Piper is a CMPC, and again, doing terrific work. And this organization, I think there were 42 different countries represented in a recent conference of AASP, and there was upwards of 500 participants in that recent conference. So again, the universal growth of the field of sports psychology, the blending of the coaching profession and the sports psychology profession. We like to believe here at WNY Coaches that we are all after the same thing, right? We're protecting the well-being of our student athletes. We're combining our knowledge and skills to deliver the educational component, the training of the person, right? Of the whole person, and our role and the role of sport in each and every person's development. So again, as young coaches or experienced coaches, if you're not associated with, for this example, the Association for the Advancement of Sports Psychology, we encourage you to become a member, because their resources and their programming is excellent. So to wind it up, This is all of us together building a coach's psychological toolbox. Let's work together to protect our young through sport. On behalf of my colleagues on the call, I'd like to thank you for being here, for listening. And you see our website there and a direct phone number if you'd like to call us. We're looking forward to future trainings and micro lectures. Everybody stay safe. And colleagues, thanks for being here.
Coach, I just mentioned one thing at the end, kind of, as I'm sitting here, anybody any coaches that have been coaching or people getting into coaching now, this Western New York Coaches is a resource, because as you know, and if you don't know, you'll find out there's nothing part-time about coaching at any level, all right? It's consuming it full-time, that's why you get involved in it, and you can't really do it all yourself. You need resources, and that's what we're trying to do here, is give you a toolbox, give you more resources to help with that coaching experience and to make it more productive for you as a coach and your athletes.
Thanks, Coach. Yes, very important. Kelly and Blair, some parting words.
Excited to get started on the work.
Awesome.
Better together.
Awesome. Thanks, folks. Everybody have a great day.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you. Stay warm, everybody.